Imagine you and your neighbor Barry have a great system. You trade your sausage rolls for his craft beer. Everyone wins. But one day, Barry slaps a fee on your sausage rolls, claiming they threaten his own business. Suddenly your pastries cost more, and the friendly trade turns sour. That's the essence of a trade war, except instead of snacks, countries use tariffs on things like steel and cars. Tariffs are taxes on imports meant to make foreign goods pricier so people buy local. Sounds simple, but it's rarely that easy. It's like fixing a Rubik's Cube with a hammer. One side looks good, but everything else is a mess. These battles are fought with taxes, not tanks, and the goal is to hurt the other side's economy until they give in. But the other country almost always hits back, and soon both sides are just making life more expensive for everyone. That's exactly what happened in 2025 between the US and Canada, two neighbors with one of the world's most integrated economies. For decades, they traded freely, like you and Barry. But then, one side decided the sausage rolls were a threat. The friendly neighborhood barbecue was over, and a messy, high-stakes fight began. This wasn't just about numbers. It was about millions of lives, proving even the best friends can have the worst fights. Welcome to the world of trade wars. The first blow came from Washington in early 2025. The US slapped a 25% tariff on steel and 10% on aluminum from several countries, including Canada. Suddenly, Canadian steel, used in American cars and buildings, was labeled a national security threat. For Canadian steel towns, this was a direct hit. Generations of families faced layoffs as their biggest customer turned away. The tariffs made Canadian steel much pricier for US buyers, threatening jobs and entire communities. The US claimed it was protecting American jobs, but for Canadians, it felt like a betrayal. President Trump even linked tariffs to unrelated disputes, exposing them as blunt political weapons. The shockwaves hit both economies. Supply chains built on open trade were thrown into chaos. Car parts crossed the border multiple times. Now, every crossing meant higher costs. The first shot wasn't just a warning, it was a direct hit on decades of economic partnership. Everyone braced for Canada's response. The trade war had officially begun. Canada didn't back down. Prime Minister Trudeau's government hit back with $20.6 billion in retaliatory tariffs, matching the US rates on steel and aluminum. But they went further, targeting American products from swing states, everything from coffee to sports gear. The message hurt us, and we'll make sure your politicians feel the pain at home. Ottawa also blocked cheap steel from other countries to protect its own industry. Meanwhile, Ontario's Premier Doug Ford opened a new front, a 25% tax on electricity exports to US states like Michigan and New York. Ford even threatened to cut off power entirely if the US didn't back down. Canada was using every tool it had: tariffs, targeted products, and even energy. Trudeau accused Trump of using trade as a political weapon, and the Canadian response became a matter of national pride. The friendly neighbor had sharp teeth, after all. The trade war was now a full-blown conflict, with both sides escalating. The stakes were higher than ever. The world watched as two close allies turned into fierce rivals. The gloves were off. The trade war quickly spiraled. In June, President Trump doubled tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum to 50%. Then the White House raised duties on more Canadian goods, citing everything from drug policy to foreign affairs. The real reason? Political retaliation. Trade policy became a tool for punishing Canada over unrelated disputes. Businesses were left in chaos, unsure what would be targeted next. Ontario's threat to cut off electricity loomed over the US Northeast. Leaders on both sides traded insults, fueling the fire. The dispute was no longer about steel, it was about pride and power. The economic pain was real, but the political drama was even bigger. The standoff seemed endless. While leaders argued, ordinary people paid the price. In Canada, steel towns faced layoffs and uncertainty. In the US, manufacturers who relied on Canadian steel saw costs soar, hurting profits and jobs. Prices rose on both sides of the border. Everyday items, cars, appliances, groceries became more expensive. American families ended up funding the trade war out of their own pockets. Businesses, big and small, struggled with the constant uncertainty. Major US companies lost billions. Small businesses were hit even harder. Farmers saw their exports to Canada plummet. The trade war, meant to protect jobs, was putting them at risk. Economic anxiety spread, and political backlash grew. The lesson was clear. Fighting your biggest trading partner hurts everyone. The real victims weren't politicians, they were workers, families, and communities. Trade wars have real, painful consequences. Amid the chaos, Toyota made a stunning move. The automaker shifted all its North American production to Canada, escaping US tariffs and uncertainty. This wasn't a tweak, it was a seismic shift. Thousands of American jobs vanished, while Canada's auto sector boomed. Toyota's decision was a direct result of the trade war. It proved that global companies will move to where the rules are stable. The US had tried to wall off its market, but Toyota simply walked around it. The loss was a wake-up call for Washington. The political win of tough on trade was overshadowed by real economic losses. For Canada, it was vindication, and a permanent gain. The trade war had redrawn the map of North American manufacturing. One boardroom decision in Tokyo changed everything. The consequences were lasting. The US-Canada trade war was just the beginning. American tariffs hit allies worldwide, triggering a global wave of retaliation. The open trading system began to seize up, threatening a worldwide recession. Businesses everywhere hesitated to invest or hire, fearing sudden tariffs. The IMF and World Bank warned of disaster, but protectionism kept rising. The US imposed new tariffs on goods from the EU, Japan, India, and even Switzerland. Each new announcement sent shockwaves through global markets. What started as a dispute over Canadian steel became a multi-front economic war. Supply chains broke down, prices rose, and uncertainty spread. Temporary truces did little to calm the chaos. The world learned in a global economy no trade war is local, the ripples reached everyone. Under pressure from businesses and consumers, the US and Canada finally agreed to a truce. Ontario suspended its electricity tax. Washington paused the harshest tariffs. But the damage was done. Toyota's move to Canada was permanent, along with thousands of jobs. Supply chains had shifted, and trust was broken. The economic landscape of North America was changed for good. Prices stayed high and businesses remained wary. The trade war left deep scars, political, economic, and personal. A new Canadian government began the slow work of rebuilding ties. The lesson was clear. The US and Canada are more than neighbors, they're economic twins. Hurting one hurts both. Tariffs proved to be a blunt, destructive weapon. In a connected world, cooperation isn't just nice, it's essential for prosperity.